What's up, everybody? My name is Daniel Unmanageable, and this is Hard Knox Talks. This Hard Knox Talks special Toronto Recovery Day event is brought to you in part by Families for Addiction Recovery and the Newly Institute. Before we start, we would just like to recognize that Global Recovery Day falls on the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. While we chose to celebrate the miracle of recovery, we will also be paying utmost respect and acknowledgement to the truths that are being revealed before our nation's eyes. Purple is to acknowledge recovery. Orange is to recognize truth and the need for reconciliation. We will find space for both because this nation needs both. We hope you can share this space with us that is brought to you from the lands of Treaty 6, Treaty 7, and Treaty 13. I spent 23 years living in addiction. 16 of those years I worked as a Red Seal tradesperson in Saskatchewan and Northern Alberta. During that time, I made many mistakes and took more than a few hard knocks. I went from tradesman to business owner to hiding from gang members and dumpster diving. But with that lived experience, I've decided to try and make a change. I've dedicated my life to raising awareness and promoting change in the fields of substance use and psychological health and safety. So join me and my guests as we take off the blinders around mental health in our communities and at work and shine a light on what's working and what's not working in the fields of mental health and occupational health and safety. I'm Daniel Unmanageable, and I'll be your host, and this is Hard Knox Talks. All right, so tonight we have co-hosting Sid from Families for Addiction Recovery, and we are going to bring her in right now. Here we come, Sid. Hey, Sid.
Hi, Dan. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing great. I am so happy to be here joining you on International Recovery Day and Truth and Reconciliation Day.
Yeah.
What a day. Two amazing things to be celebrating.
Yeah, no, I spent a good part of the day going around to different events in town, meeting people, being with the community. It was great. So what can we do here? We have Minister Tibollo. Would you like to say anything about him before we bring his address on?
Yeah, well, I would. We've been doing some work with him and certainly would like to do a lot more. And he's the Associate Minister of Mental Health and Addictions for Ontario, Michael Tibollo. And so he's put together a few words for us. So let's see what he has to say.
Let's do it.
Hello, everyone. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Michael Tibollo, and I proudly serve the people of Ontario as the province's very first Associate Minister for Mental Health and Addictions. Prior to taking office, I spent nearly a decade as chair of a bed-based therapeutic community where I became a certified addictions counselor. I work with individuals convicted as drug dealers and users, those damaged by their addiction, and of course their families. I remember and pray for those who did not survive overdose and their loved ones. I've seen the control drugs can have and the harm it can cause to individuals and their families. I've helped develop strategies to overcome dependence and put people on a path towards employment and/or education. In emergency departments, I've seen hallway health care over and over again. I've seen overdoses, psychotic episodes, youth struggling with suicidal thoughts, and others needing help being turned away until the process is repeated. I've seen police officers spend hours in emergency rooms waiting with people experiencing a crisis. I've also visited remote communities where suicide and addictions is too often a tragic end to suffering. But today is a day to move forward and to show our support for those who may be struggling and to tell them that they're not alone in their recovery journey. I wish to extend a heartfelt congratulations to all those involved in establishing today as Recovery Day in the City of Toronto, and to the countless individuals and organizations, including Families for Addiction Recovery Canada, for their hard work and advocacy to spread awareness around an issue that affects far too many Ontarians and their families every single day. The month of September is also an important month all across this beautiful province, as earlier this year our government officially proclaimed the month of September as Recovery Month through legislation. So with this month being Recovery Month and today being the last day of September, I encourage all of you to work together to continue supporting one another and help us spread the message that recovery is possible, that treatment does work, and stigmas around addiction and recovery must always be challenged. We must also not forget that today is also National Truth and Reconciliation Day. Ontario recognizes the profound impact of past injustices and discrimination against Indigenous peoples and communities and the current challenges with addiction and mental health in communities across the province. We will continue working with Indigenous partners so that everyone has access to the high-quality care they expect and deserve. Our goal has always been to ensure people struggling with addiction and their mental health have access to the right services that meet their unique needs. We want everyone who may be struggling to know that there is hope. We want them to know that recovery has changed the lives of so many people and that there are people, including everyone listening here today, standing shoulder to shoulder to support them on their recovery journey. Only by sharing positive success stories can we give people struggling the hope they need to take that first step to overcome the stigma and reach out for help, to find within them the courage to come forward and to not feel that coming forward is somehow shameful. The stigma has to stop. On that note, I want to thank everyone here today for showing your support for those struggling with addiction and for letting them know that they are not alone in their fight. Thank you, and stay safe.
Awesome.
Really great. Recovery is possible. What a good message he's sending out there.
You know, and it's really great that we're finally seeing the government at least proclaiming the days and at least having the conversations. You know, we understand big wheels turn slow, isn't that right?
Yes, it's a good start. We need so much more, but this is a really great start for sure.
Mm-hmm. So, who do we have next? I think we're ready for Owen. Should we bring Owen in?
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to hearing Owen's story.
All right, here we come, Owen. What's up, my friend?
Hello. Good evening.
So, tell us a little bit about your day today. You had an event today. Tell us about how you paid tribute to Truth and Reconciliation.
I was very blessed to be able to be invited out to Wanuskewin to share my personal presentation. And it was honoring Truth and Reconciliation, the history of Truth and Reconciliation Day, as well as my story while relating to some of the 94 calls to action. And then what we can do as individuals in the nation to kind of address and work towards reconciliation. A lot of people want to help and a lot of people want to do good, but they're not sure how. So, you know, just gently guiding them is major.
Cool, man. Okay, well, why don't you tell us a bit about your story? You have 15 minutes. The floor is yours, my friend.
Okay, just you want to hear my story?
Well, you have 15 minutes to talk about recovery. Do with it what you will.
So, you know what? I'm a product of intergenerational traumas. My mom was in the residential schools. She suffered abuses. She suffered in there. And then when she didn't heal from that, and then my dad as well was a part of the 60 Scoop. He went to a foster home and he was abused as well there. And he lost contact with all his family. So he suffered. And so when they got together, they both had their own traumas and they got together and started having children, my sisters and I. And so we were born into abandonment, neglect, abuse. earliest memory is being locked in the bedroom, not being able to get out and wanting to get out and go and have fun and play with other kids, but not being able to get out. So, that was how I kind of was, that's my earliest memory. And then I was placed into foster care. I was apprehended, placed into foster care with a non-Indigenous family. And I didn't even was aware that I was Indigenous until the other kids pointed it out and said, Indian foster kid, and like it was a bad, dirty word. And so that was my identity. I carried that for a while as a child. By the time I went back to my family, my auntie, when I was older, I had a lot of pain and hurts inside. I had a lot of traumas, a lot of unanswered questions. I just didn't know who I was. So, my feelings turned to anger and resentment, and I was hurting people. I was stealing. I was using drugs and alcohol at age 13. Started with the weed, then started with the alcohol. I remember the first time I drank hard stuff to black out. I woke up the next day and I was like, what happened? Not even a clue of what happened. And so then I ended up going to jail at age 13 from stealing to support these drugs and alcohol, and in and out of jail all my teenage years, in and out of jail, using drugs and alcohol, stealing, abusing people, abusing myself. It was just a normal thing for me. And I wasn't aware of the issues that I suffered from. I wasn't aware of it. And as an adult, I continued. It continued most of my life. I joined a gang. I was a part of a major gang. I was hurting people. I was using people. And I just thought I thought the world revolved around me more or less. And so after a few close calls on my life, and in 2013, I was actually charged with murder. I was at the scene when a man lost his life. I didn't kill him, but I was there when it happened, and I didn't report it. I didn't tell the cops because I was still in the game. And so I was charged with murder 6 months down the road. After about a year and a half of court and all of that, the charge was dropped against me. My co-accused pled out, and they dropped it against me. So I was free of that, but I was still suffering inside, and I was still unaware of it. About a year or two more of that, and I was like, okay, I've had enough. I have to ask for help. One of the hardest things I've ever had to do was pick up that phone and ask for help. I wasn't ever taught how to do that. So I called the counselor and I said, hey, I need help. I want to go to a treatment center. Can you please send me to a treatment center? And so she agreed, and she sent me to a treatment center, and that was great, because once I went to the treatment center at 34 years old, she pointed out to me, you suffer from abandonment, neglect, and abuse. And I was like, oh, even though I went through these things, I wasn't aware of it. So having a professional point that out to me was really helpful, because I was able to start addressing some of these issues. And the way how I did that was by forgiveness. See, I was able to forgive my mom. I wrote her a letter. I wrote my dad a letter, and I said, I forgive you guys for losing us to foster care. I forgive you. I understand you didn't do it by choice. I understand as a mature man now that you had your own traumas that you didn't heal from, and that's why I had to suffer through foster care. And so recovery's been a tricky road for me. I first went into recovery at 2017, and I didn't utilize my tools. I got out, and I ended up going back out there. And next thing I know, a year just blew by, and I was like, whoa, this is crazy. This is insane. If I don't get this under control, this is how the rest of my life is going to be. And I seen that happen to my parents, and I didn't want that to happen to me. So I picked up the phone again, and I said, hey, I'm going to go to detox with treatment to follow. I'm pretty sure it's set up like that for a reason, so let me try this that way. So I went to detox in Moose Jaw, then I went to treatment in Saskatoon. And that's where I met Straight Up. Straight Up is a nonprofit organization that assists people who are involved in the criminal street lifestyle, gangsters, ex-gangsters. It helps them to get out of that and to lead a healthy life. So they came and did a presentation. I said, hey, I want to be a part of this organization. He said, write your auto bio. That's what I did. 2 weeks later, I was at the Young Offender Center sharing my story with the young men. And it was at that moment, it was profound, because I could see myself in all these young guys. I was them. I was there. But the difference is I didn't have someone like me, a mentor, a guide, to guide me out of that. And these guys did. And I explained that to them. And afterwards, as I reflected, I thought, wow, this gives my life a lot of meaning and purpose. And it means all those years out there on drugs and alcohol, all those years in the game, hurting people, it was not a waste. It was education. That was experiences that I needed to accumulate so I'm able to use this in a healthy way to give back. So today I stick close with Straight Up. I utilize my resources. I have a counselor that I've been seeing, a drug counselor. For 2.5 years, we've developed a really good relationship. She knows me really well and she's there for me. I have 2 sponsors. I go to my meetings. I attend Sharing Circle. I smudge. I pray. I talk to people. I journal. These are the things I have to do on a daily basis. And once I let my guard down, the addictions come back up, the depression, the anxiety, all of that. Hey, bro, what's up? So I know I can't relax on my disciplines. I have to keep reading. I have to keep studying. I have to keep doing what I need to do to remain healthy. And if I don't, this is life or death, man. I've lost people out there. I've lost people to overdose, to the gang life, to stabbings, to drunk driving, to prison. I've lost people, and I don't want to do that. I want to be a positive role model for my children, and I want to, give back in a healthy way. I was blessed with the second chance for a reason, and I don't want to waste it. I want to utilize it in a good way.
Amazing. So tell me, would you consider the work that you're doing with Straight Up to be somewhat of like an aftercare program for you? Is that part of your maintenance to stay on the right path as it helps you?
It's one way to look at it for sure. And aftercare, yeah, I think it's just, it definitely helps me to remain healthy and responsible because I have supportive people there who I work with. And, I got to look at them. I got to talk to them. I got to go to work with them all the time. So it helps me to remain responsible.
Accountability.
It's good like that. Accountability, exactly.
Yeah. Sid, what do you figure?
Yeah, Owen, thank you so much for sharing that story. It's so impactful. It says so much about your strength. So congratulations for where you are now. He's touched on so many different issues that a lot of families are dealing with and where the problems are in the system. I can't imagine being 13 years old and being sent to jail and multiple times at that. This is certainly not an offense that people need to be sent to jail. This is a medical issue, and clearly getting the support that you needed is what does make the difference. Mm-hmm. So I think we've got some big issues with the legal system, but as well, Owen, you identified you started at 13. That's so difficult for you, and clearly historical trauma within your families and everything you've gone through made big impacts in your life. But what we know is up to 90% of youth that are starting at these kind of ages also have an associated mental health issue. So when we're not dealing with both sides of this issue, it makes it even that much harder to recover. And as Owen had mentioned, he did have some depression and anxiety, and clearly a lot of trauma that needed to be addressed. So it's important that people know this is a co-occurring medical issue, as we just see there on the screen. It really is. There's no shame and blame in this, and finding the right medical help. So it sounds like you had a good journey when you started reaching out for help. It's certainly not linear, right? It really goes up and down. Relapse is a part of the journey. You seem to maintain that and stay on top of it. So much power to you for doing all that. I'm curious what your thoughts are as a 13-year-old being sent to prison. What did that do to you? And how can we use that message to teach lawmakers to make some changes in that area?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think like when I share my story, I say first time in jail, cuffs on, sent to jail. I'm scared. I'm terrified. I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to jail. This is insane. But it wasn't long afterwards I realized a lot of the guys that I was in jail with, Paul Dojak Youth Center in Regina, closed custody for young offenders, they were just like me. They were suffering from the same intergenerational traumas that I was, but we're all unaware of it. We're clueless. poverty, traumas, neglect. These are normal living circumstances for a lot of us. So when I say this is my normal and someone says that's not normal, and I'm like, oh, wait a minute.
You're not normal.
That's not normal?
Yeah, what do you
Our normals are different. Our
Yeah.
normals are different, right?
Yeah. So one last question. And I asked this of everybody. So when you're 13 and you're going into jail, did they offer you any resources? Did the jail itself, the prison, the organization, did they have any mentorship for you or anything, or did they just send you to the wolves?
Yeah, as opposed to intervention and prevention, there's none of that. It's all suppression. Lock them up, lock them up. Oh, you got a story? No, you don't. Oh, you're a person with a name? No, you aren't. You're a number. Go in that cell. See you. Go to court. Go do your time.
The machine. Yeah.
The machine, exactly.
Yeah. All right, my man. Thank you so much for sharing with us tonight. Really appreciate it. We'll let you get back at it. I'm sure you've had a long day, so we'll let you rest.
Appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
That was really wonderful hearing your story. I appreciate you taking the time to share that with us. And all the best to you in your future.
All right.
Have a great night. Thanks.
Take care.
Bye.
Okay, Sid. We're on our own again.
Boy, heartbreaking stories. It just really highlights the inadequacies that we have in our system.
It's interesting. You say heartbreaking, and they are tragic, but at the same time, I was listening to Owen speak today, and he said that this time wasn't wasted. The time that we spent going through these terrible things, and we were learning, and we were growing. And it gave us the ability to do what we're doing today. I mean, Owen's a great motivational speaker. He speaks to a lot of people. He works with the youth. And he wouldn't be able to do that without that lived experience. So, yeah.
Well, good point. Hopefully it could have been a little bit shorter, and not everybody goes through that route. So clearly still a lot of work needs to be done there.
Yeah, that's true. So anyways, let's move forward. Now we are going to hear a few words from the Newly. The Newly Institute is Canada's first medically managed intensive outpatient program that focuses on the root of addiction and long-term Phase 3 addiction support. As Canada's first and only interdisciplinary organization that offers medically managed intensive outpatient treatment, they focus on addiction, mental health, PTSD, trauma, and chronic pain. The Newly believes that mental health, addiction, and chronic pain treatment is in drastic need of a paradigm shift, and their vision was founded to provide long-lasting change within this industry, their community, and with their clients. By fusing a biopsychosocial spiritual treatment model, patients can overcome deeply embedded traumas that prevent them from recovering and living fully in their everyday lives. The Newly programs are based on evidence and data, but their approach is personalized because they know it is vital that people feel safe and supported as clients move towards wellness and recovery. This evidence-based program is designed for those who require maximum treatment benefit in a short time frame with rapid resolution of mental health concerns that are often the root of addiction. The Premium Intense Outpatient Program, IOPs, include approximately 140 to 150 hours of therapy by registered medical practitioners from many disciplines. The Newly's Calgary Clinic now welcomes clients, with clinics opening soon from coast to coast. Check them out at www.thenewly.ca or on Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, or Facebook. So that was actually my very first commercial. The Newly actually hired me to do that voiceover and put that together. How did I do? Was that good?
Well done. That was just awesome.
Yeah, the Newly's been great. Like, they've been offering a lot of support, and they're just, they're very supportive, and I'm grateful that they're being a part of this. It's great.
We need lots of organizations like that out there.
We do. We need more. And they're opening up all over Canada too. They're going nationwide, and like you look at some of the things that they're doing, it's just like I can't believe it. I can't believe that it's happening finally. So,
Yeah.
anyways, tell us a little bit about our next guest. You know her much better than I do.
I do, but you know what I'm going to do really quickly before we do that is I just want to tell you a little bit about Families for Addiction Recovery
Yes.
and what we do, so you have an
Yes.
understanding of our organization. We are a national charity founded by parents who have loved ones struggling with addictions. And of course, our long-term goal is recovery for those with addictions and their families. Families are really important in this piece. So a little bit about what we do quickly is we have parent-to-parent support for families. We have an online parent support group. And we also have live phone support line that's open weekdays for more immediate help. But we also are a voice for families to influence government policy, and we educate community groups, healthcare providers, and law enforcement about addiction health laws and drug policies. So our main goal is to educate families about addictions and co-occurring mental health disorders. So I really just wanted to touch on quickly a few really important points for those families that are listening to help in supporting you through this. What really helps families is understanding what we call the 3 C's. We didn't cause this, we can't control it, and we certainly can't cure it as much as we want to. We don't control our loved ones, and we don't control the outcomes. Good people die from very good families. This is happening across the board. Accepting that reduces our suffering. It's radical acceptance, and it's extremely difficult. What we do have power is what we say or what we're doing. The love and the support that we are providing is key. And educating ourselves about families in addictions and what those co-occurring mental health diagnoses mean for their loved one. So just 1 or 2 things I'm going to touch on. Boundaries, really good for you. They're not for punishments. It's really about protecting ourselves. We use I statements, and they're to help manage difficult situations. No matter what is happening, it's the illness that's in control. Remembering this does help us to keep our support and compassion alive, and communicate with compassion. We need to create a safe place for them to come to us and talk honestly without getting in trouble, and validate their experience. We've got a lot that we can learn from them. So focus on the relationship. Your loved one is struggling with a horrible illness. Catch something good that they do. Celebrate all the wins that you can. And natural consequences are oftentimes the best teachers. It shows these small failures and reminds them that they need help. And these things help put families on a path to recovery, because it's a family disease as well. And just before I introduce Barb, I did want to let everybody know we do have a proclamation for Recovery Day from Mayor John Tory that I wanted to quickly read, that we're really happy that we got again this year. He says in the proclamation, whereas today we acknowledge the pain and stigma associated with substance use disorder, while raising awareness of the benefits that come from addiction recovery, including its ability to improve the lives of individuals, families, and communities. This day highlights the need to offer support and encouragement to individuals living with a substance use disorder as they work towards recovery from it. The City of Toronto supports organizations and individuals committed to raising awareness about diseases, conditions, and illnesses that affect all Canadians. Through education, fundraising, and support, the health and well-being of our communities are improved. Now, therefore, I, Mayor John Tory, on behalf of the City of Toronto Council, do hereby proclaim September 30th, 2021 as Recovery Day Toronto in the City of Toronto. So thank you so much to Mayor Tory. So Barb.
Should we bring her in?
Do an introduction for Barb. We've got a wonderful mom that is joining us, and I'd like to let you know a little bit about her before she has a few minutes to chat about her situation. Barb is a mom of 2 adult children, and her eldest child has a substance use disorder. For 35 years, she's worked supporting youth and their families. She retired in 2021 and is now focusing her time volunteering as a peer supporter for Families for Addiction Recovery. Couldn't be happier to have Barb with us. And she is training to be a recovery coach. Barb has spent years educating herself to become an informed parent, supporting and advocating for her son towards recovery while protecting her own mental health. Really important. So we're really happy to have Barb joining us tonight to tell a little bit about her story.
Okay.
She's got some very wise words.
Here she comes. Hey, Barb.
Hello, Barb.
Oh, hang on. Technical difficulty. Try that now.
Hi, Sid. Hi, Dan.
There we go.
Oh, good. Nice to see you, Barb. Yeah. Thank you so much for joining us. It's wonderful to have you with us.
Thank you. Thanks for inviting me. I really appreciate it.
Good. So you've been through quite a journey as well. And so we'd really love to hear about your journey, what you're willing to talk to us about, and a little bit about your perspective on sort of the healthcare system and issues that you and I have both spoken about before.
Yeah, for sure. You know, as you said, Sydney, I've recently retired, and sitting here reflecting on the fact that I've recently retired, I now refer to myself as a accidental advocate. There was never a time that I thought that in retirement that I would be during a 13-year journey with supporting my son through substance use issues, and basically taking that lived experience and trying to support other families. You know, I didn't realize that recovery also meant my recovery or my family's recovery. And really, when I use that word recovery, I think of it as a verb. You know, it's something that's still in action. It's something that is ongoing. Certainly, I don't feel like we've come to the end of that particular statement, so to speak. But you know, when I think back, you know, when my kids were in school, really what it was about at the time was just say no to drugs. And so we were led to believe that this is a behavior, you know, that the kids are choosing this lifestyle. And as such, you know, it was dealt with in that kind of a fashion. But when I realized that opiates in the form of Oxycontin had sort of slithered into our family, it was terrifying for me. You know, even though I had a career supporting youth and families in children's mental health treatment centers, it really was, I was left feeling very, very alone, because again, due to feelings of shame and stigma, it wasn't anything that I went to talk to people about. So at that time I was working, and I would go to work, not saying a word to anybody. I would sit around tables, I would sit around boardroom tables and be a part of committees. And at the time I remember looking around and thinking to myself, I wonder if anybody else is going through what I'm going through. Why my family? Why my son? What am I going to be able to do about this? Who do I go to for help? And so, you know, like lots of our families right now, when you're in that situation, you're overwhelmed, you're confused, you're panicked. And so, you know, we were reaching out to people. I was going to Nar-Anon meetings, Al-Anon meetings. I was making appointments with therapists, and I was joining Facebook groups as time went by. And I became to understand that my son had a disease. It was a disease of addiction. And before that time, it was really, you know, again, as I said before, that whole idea that he was choosing this lifestyle. So once I started realizing that my journey and how I was going to manage this and how I was going to keep my own mental health, I really then began to educate myself. And I had a really, really supportive employer in terms of, it was also part of my job, was to try to support youth and their families through the school system. So at that time, I became very involved with looking at our own policies and procedures in the school board. And I was able to go to lots and lots of professional development, but always, I was looking for the answer. Show me the answer so that I know what to do and I can do it right. And I think that took many, many years to realize. It's a chronic disease, realizing that there really was no answers, and certainly there is no cure. So how was I going to manage that, and how was I going to support my kid? So prior to 2015, I call those the black years. There was times in there that my son was estranged from us. There was a time in there that my son was incarcerated, and that was a whole knew education, reluctant education, because I was led to believe that when my son went into the federal system, that he would get treatment. That did not happen, despite the fact that the judge had written that he was to receive treatment. It did not happen. And I was then told by Corrections Canada that judges don't know what goes on inside. That certainly a person that goes into the federal system has to be assessed. If they are deemed to be low risk of reoffending, they do not qualify for treatment. So again, almost like the reverse of what we would expect. Somebody that was going into into federal for the first time, we would think that they would be receiving the treatment so that they wouldn't reoffend. So it made absolutely no sense to me coming out of that system. I would say that the biggest part of trauma occurred during those years. But in 2019, my son, excuse me, I'm just going to take some water. In 2019, my son reached out, and at that time he was homeless. He was basically sitting in a McDonald's. He had no place to go. He was hungry, humiliated, and broken, his words. Asked for help. So this was just joy to my ears, because I'd been waiting for this, waiting for the time, because again, I had, was told and believed that he needed to want help before we could get him help. So these were the words that I'd been waiting to hear. And because I sat on all those committees, and because I was aware of youth homelessness, and I was aware of the substance abuse committees, and I was aware of Housing First and homeless initiatives and all of those great things, I truly believed that our city was ready and prepared to support my son. I was wrong. I was dead wrong. I spent days and days on the phone calling agencies asking for help. My name is Barb. My son needs help. Can you help me? I was given things like, here's a list of places that you can try for housing. No, they were all full. I was given a list of apartment listings. No, we prefer students. Does he have a job? Does he have references? Can we do a credit check? Obviously, none of that worked. He did not have any of those things. So again, he was without a home. He said, I'd like treatment. Okay, let's do that. Start phoning around, phone connects. What can we look for? Went to appointments with an addiction counselor. Well, what kind of treatment would you like? Well, what kind of treatment is available? Can you pay? No. Is it OHIP? Yes. Oh, well, then be expected to wait for many, many months. Well, we didn't want short term. We didn't want 30 days. We wanted longer term treatment. And those wait lists were very, very long. So names went on, the gains assessments were done. So again, all of these were daily appointments, day after day, week after week, trying to go through and jump through all these hoops. Name was being put on a wait list, and you had to phone every Wednesday. And if you didn't phone on a Wednesday, you went to the bottom of the wait list. Your name was coming to the top of the list. Oh, you take methadone? No, you can't come into this treatment center because you're on methadone. Sorry, you'll have to try a different center. So it became so discouraging and so overwhelming that at that time it was really started to feel bleak. Then I was recognizing my own mental health. So I was so worried about my son. A therapist said to me, well, it's easy. You just stop thinking about him. Do the 12 steps and you'll be fine. Stay in your backyard. Your son stays in his backyard. That wasn't helpful to me. I now realize that families also have trauma. Families also are dealing with grief, because we're grieving our children, even though they're still alive. They're not the children that we expected them to be, the potential that we expected for them to have. So now we're living and watching somebody that looks like our kid, but certainly isn't the kid that we knew. And that is grief. And we have suffered trauma. So until we start recognizing that families also are going through trauma, and that's how we should be learning how to cope with that, then I think that we'll move forward much further. I think recognizing that that is exactly where families are at. During that time as well, I think once we realized the difficulties of housing, I made the decision to become my son's landlord, basically. And at that time, I also became what I would call his case manager. Cognitively, he was not able even to recognize where he was in a day. He didn't know what day it was, let alone making appointments to go to court or to meet with probation or to go to the clinic. So really, I recognized that. And what it was explained to me as well was a condition that often is referred to as like a toxic brain injury, often due to untreated overdoses using Narcan. During the 2018-19 years, my son lost several of his friends, and these were kids that grew up with him in our neighborhood. I attended a couple of those funerals, and it was so devastating to watch families dealing with that. So at that time, I thought to myself, what else can we do? It was almost you're pulling out all the stops. I call it the place where love and addiction meet. It's the face-off. Which one of us is going to win? That's what I thought at the time. Now I've learned way, way more than that, recognizing that there really is no winner here. It's a long-lasting journey. I think that during the time that I was my son's landlord, it was a scary time because an addiction to fentanyl and meth creates such chaos, and it's scary for everybody. So during that time, a colleague of mine at work explained to me about her journey and that she had sent her son out of country for treatment, and then ultimately to British Columbia. Never in my wildest dreams did I think that we'd be able to send my son for private treatment. You know, I was a single mom, raised 2 kids, but I decided to seek the help of our friends and community, and I did a Gofundme campaign. And again, you know, I explained addiction. I said there's no guarantees here. If you can spare $20 worth of hope, can we please have that? Can we please put together everything that we can do in order to send him to treatment in British Columbia? And the reason that I was so interested in that was recognizing that treatment is just the beginning. Recovery happens after the treatment. And I really knew that my son needed to be able to learn to live in a sober community because he'd never done that. It really had just been, you know, treatment or jail, come out, right back into the cycle of homelessness, poverty, then criminal activity, because you've gone back into using drugs. And so the criminal activity that came with that in order to support that. Again, the cycle just kept perpetuating. So it was a scary, scary time. As I said, I call those the black years. Once we did that GoFundMe campaign, what private treatment affords you is to be able to call them up and say, my son is coming on this day. He's a mess. And they deal with everything. They arrived at the airport. They pick him up, took him into treatment. He detoxed in there. And at that time, he was so close to death. He was overdosing daily. And at that time, I figured if he got a week of clean time, it was something. If he got a month of clean time and stayed alive, I'd be thanking God. As it turned out, that 1 month turned into 2 months, turned into 3 months. He made the 3 months, and I was just blown away. I'm so proud. And he did great. And he went into sober living for a short time. I'm not going to say things are great. I'm not going to say, that here we go, off into our happy life. It's been rough. There's a lot of kinks in the road. He is extremely persistent in trying to find long-term recovery. Throughout all of this, we've maintained a relationship. Even during the time that he was estranged from us, when he felt it was better for him to be away from the family, when he was ready to come back and talk, we were here for him with open arms. And we've always had that relationship in an effort to support him. So no matter what, the relationship comes first. So now when I'm speaking to families that I support through Far Canada, which is that wonderful program, parents can call in and have 8 sessions with a peer supporter. I hear many, many, many times the ability to speak to somebody that knows exactly what you're going through is so helpful because many times family and friends don't understand. And oftentimes they make comments perhaps or judgments that really is hurtful and is not helpful. So again, to be able to have people that are able to speak to you about their experience and encourage you, trial and error. Again, there's no fix, there's no cure. And no matter what it is that we say, if that doesn't fit for you and your family, then it's not going to work. So it is just about sharing those sorts of experiences.
Wow,
Well,
Barb,
well said.
Yeah, what a story. You are such an empowered mother. So your son is extremely lucky that he has you. And again, you're just showing so many cracks that we have in the system. It's heartbreaking to know that the shame and stigma prevents recoveries for people suffering and for the families. Can't imagine anybody choosing to be in addictions. Like that's just not a kind of life somebody picks. It's obviously a huge illness. And can you imagine if the healthcare system treated somebody with a heart condition in the same way? Well, wait months or wait. So you highlight a really important issues. And thank you so much for taking the time to share that with us, because it's so important to hear where we need improvements. And then again, to know you're not alone. And Families for Addiction Recovery certainly can help with other families going through similar things.
Awesome. Okay, Barb. Well, thank you very much for joining us this evening, and we will
Thank
let
you.
you. Yeah, I hope you enjoy the rest of the show, and we'll talk again, my friend.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Barb. Dan, maybe this would be a great time in between interviews to play our PSA.
Play that
Show them-
PSA. Here we go. Oh.
That shatters families. It can happen in any family. You are not alone. We know the pain of watching a child suffer from addiction. We've been there. There is hope. Families for Addiction Recovery provides education and free support for parents whose kids are struggling with addiction. Visit us at farcanada.org. We understand.
Love that.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a great time to bring in another person in recovery that we have waiting.
Okay, here we go. What's up, Tyler?
Whoa, this is Tyler. Tyler, I'm so happy that you are with us. Is it Tyler Svadjan? Help me with the last name, Tyler. That's a tough one.
Why are you not making sound?
He's not making sound. I'm going to run through his bio really
There we
quickly.
go. Is that better?
That is much better. Yeah.
There you go. Okay, so
Hi, everyone.
Tyler he's been in long-term recovery from mind-altering substances for over 7 years. Substances took hold of his life at a young age, but with some help from loved ones in his life, he's been able to turn his life around and create one that is beyond his wildest dreams. If that's not the best testimonial ever, I don't know what is. He's currently pursuing his master's in addictions counseling in order to help individuals who experience struggles with substance use disorder and mental health disorders, and is looking forward to the privilege of giving back to his community and giving back what was once so freely given to him. That's so wonderfully worded. Tyler, so happy to have you with us.
Yeah, thank you guys both so much for having me. It's an honor and privilege to be here.
The floor is yours, my friend.
Absolutely. So yeah, as was mentioned by Sydney, I have been in long-term recovery for just over 7 years now. And I think back and prior to coming on here today, I was thinking back to the life that I have today and the testament that I had made near the end of being beyond my wildest dreams. And while that may be, a slight cliche or may sound a little corny, it is quite literally factual. I often reflect on, and ask myself, had you told me 7 years ago that I'd be where I am today, I probably would have laughed in your face. And that would have been my legitimate reaction. But with a few helping hands along the way and a little bit of work in between there, pardon me, that life has come to fruition. And it's one that I don't take for granted, and I really try to seize every opportunity that comes my way today, because I know that without recovery, none of it would be possible. None of it. I grew up in a relatively normal household, whatever normal means, what I thought was normal. And I had two loving households, a loving family who supported me in any endeavor that I did. And that I made as a child. And I was taught some really, solid principles. The importance of family, the importance of connection, honesty, love, compassion, so on and so forth. all the kind of fundamental principles of recovery. Again, looking back on that and how we got to where we are today, it's kind of funny how things work. But those principles were taught to me. Those were things that I had in my back pocket. Growing up and having a lot of friends in school and doing all the activities, the sports, the hanging out with friends on weekends. Again, that normal child stuff. Until the point where it didn't become normal anymore. And I had reached a point in my life and kind of my young teenage development where I was left kind of saying, well, what's next? And I was always kind of seeking that next thing, and eventually that thing, whatever it be, the sports team or the club or the friend or what have you, it always kind of didn't seem to fit. And it was never enough, and it only lasted for so long. And that was until I found drugs and alcohol. Because when I found those two things, that same feeling, that same sensation that I had experienced of getting bored or tired of it, it was no longer there. And you often hear in recovery communities that sensation of I had arrived. And that's quite literally what it was. I knew from the moment that I had first tried drugs and alcohol that this was for me, that I enjoyed this very much and I wanted it to continue. And that's in the long and short of it, that is what happened. I went as a 15-year-old boy, to doing drugs and drinking pretty much every day. And it quite literally consumed my life. The family that I had spoke about, they were on the back burner. The friends that I had accumulated, they didn't really matter anymore if they didn't serve my interests, and those interests at that time being, substances. The sports teams, they were gone. School, I had little to no interest in, because again, anything that really prevented me from using substances was on the back burner, and its importance of my life became diminished. And I persisted in, we talk about the progression of this disease of substance use disorder. And again, that is what happened to me. It progressed to a point where, a point of no return, if you will. And I knew, well, not consciously, but, reflecting on it, that there was no turning back after that point. And the loved ones that I had, the ones who supported me up until that point, they were the ones that were the first to see this problem. And of course, if for those of you listening who have experienced active addiction, they were the people that I wanted the least to do with. Because again, back to that idea of anything that prevented me from using substances for one more minute, hour, day, year, month, whatever, were not as important. And their importance diminished. So I continued to do what I did, and nearly flunking out of school. Thank goodness I never got in trouble with the law. I came close many times. But having those, the things being taken away didn't really do much for me. It didn't really, say, hey, maybe you do have a problem. Again, nearly flunking out of school, pretty much left in the point of isolation where it really was just me. And my parents finally took action, and they tried to do something about it, to whatever capacity they could, given my unwillingness to change. They sent me to psychiatrists, they sent me to doctors, they sent me to substance use counselors. And I like to think that I was able to pull the wool over their eyes. And my parents said, well, maybe it is just a phase. So I kept doing what I was doing until, we all kind of came to this conclusion, or my parents rather, and maybe it wasn't. Maybe it wasn't a phase, and maybe there was a real problem here. So they sent me to a substance use counselor who, conducted all of his assessments and so on and so forth, and deemed me a true, genuine addict and alcoholic, as I like to joke with him today. Him and I still have a relationship. So at that point it was, try to stop, and I couldn't. I could not stop. And then it was, Tyler, go to treatment. And I said, I have no interest in doing that because I don't have a problem. And then it was, Tyler, well, if you don't go to treatment, then you can leave the house. So that's exactly what I did. at the tender age of 17. Drugs and alcohol consumed my life to the point where I had no interest or no care, really. Whether it was kicked out of the house, flunked out of school, it didn't matter. And I'll skip to the final part where, I realized and I had nothing left. So I finally reached out to help. I made that call. And then that was July 14th, 2014. And by the grace of, my support network and those around me, I've been able to stay sober ever since. I was sent to a treatment center in the United States because, as was previously mentioned by the guest, dealing with wait times and such in our province of Ontario and really in Canada as a whole makes it extremely difficult for adolescents to seek treatment. So I'm extremely, extremely, extremely fortunate that my parents had the resources to be able to send me there, down to a private treatment center in the U.S. And I went down there with good intentions. I joke about that today. Good intentions is a joke in our family because I was convinced that we weren't actually going, but I was pretty much dropped off at the door and said, "See you later." So I
solid parents. Sounds like something my mom would do.
Yeah, exactly. It was adios. I'm leaving. Leave you in another country, kind of thing. But again, it worked. I was able to, learn about this disease and how it applied to myself, and really learn the tools to be able to do this one day at a time. And for a guy who had, no interest in listening to what these people had to say, I was chipped away at enough to give it a chance. And, coming back from treatment 2.5 months later, I said to myself, well, you know what? I'm 17. I got a lot of time. I'll try this shindig for a year. And if I don't like it, then I'll just go back. And that's kind of the attitude that I held, and while still doing the things that were suggested to me, because I felt it was fair to give it an honest and open-minded try. And I started to regain those things back. I started to realize that maybe this is the lifestyle for me. This life is pretty damn good. Were the things that I kept telling myself, and these opportunities were coming left, right, and center. And I came to the realization, as I said in my introduction, that none of it would be possible without recovery. None of it. I was fortunate enough to get into university. And again, this is coming from an individual who nearly failed out of school. I had the privilege to do that. I started to regain those friendships. I started to try and give back to the best of my ability. I can remember speaking at high schools, talking to kids who were 2 years younger than me, a year younger than me, letting them know that this is possible. And not to suggest that, they will have a problem or they do have a problem, but that if that problem ever persisted to the point where, they needed to seek that help is available to them. And I still stand by that today. Again, as was mentioned in my introduction, I've made the life decision to, pursue a career in this field to be able to give back, again, what was once so freely given to me. And the gentleman that I work with, I see hope, and I'm around hope, but I'm also around despair. I see bits and pieces of myself in the gentleman that I work with. And I'm able to, try my best to be able to show them that this is possible. A new life is possible for them. And regardless of the level of despair that they've achieved or the level of depth of, that their addiction has taken them to, there is a solution. There is an answer. And still today, I continue to do the things that I need to do to keep what I got. And I'm honored and privileged to, have opportunities like this to be able to share that, spread that message, to let the individuals who are watching know, and the individuals who are watching this later on, that, it is possible, regardless of age, race, sexual orientation, gender identity, so on and so forth, where you come from, who you are. Addiction can affect anyone. And in that same sentiment, recovery is possible for anyone.
Well,
that is all I got.
Well, good, because your face is frozen.
Oh, that's not good.
No, we can hear you still, but you've got a very, would you call that a wise look, Sid? What would you call that?
Oh, goodness.
He's very pensive, and he's thinking.
Pensive, wistful,
right?
wistful,
Yeah.
my mother says. Mm-hmm.
I can see the frozen face too. That's not my good side, Dan. You promised to show my good
I
side.
did not. You asked me. I didn't say. Okay, Tyler. Sid, what do you got to say? Anything?
Boy, just what an amazing example of hope and what great recovery looks like. Thank you so much, Tyler, for sharing your story. It's so impactful, and I think it provides so much hope for people.
Thank you, Sydney. I appreciate it.
Okay, take care, Tyler. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks. You both have a great night.
You as well. Okay, so we have no videos left to watch to allow me time to get the next guest ready. So what we are going to do is we are going to, I was going to look at Toronto, but let's see what this looks like. My behind the scenes stuff is on there. So let's see, what can we do here? We have up next, we have Jessica from, what is she? Jessica is the creator and host of Tree of Stars on Tour. Sorry, Jessica. And we are going to bring her on right now. Hello, Jessica. Oh, and I'm doing the same thing again. Sound on. There you go.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good, Jessica. How are you?
I'm great. What amazing speakers and information and resources. It's just such a great inspiration. I don't even know how I'm going to sleep tonight.
Yeah. So.
Yeah,
Go
just I guess I'll just dive right in. I know you guys are stretching for time, so I guess the clock goes ticking, and I'll just dive right in.
It's okay.
First, no worries. All right, so I first of all, I just want to say thank you to everybody just for all their messages of hope, and to take this moment to recognize and raise awareness for the National Day of Remembrance, and additionally to that. I'm very honored to be working at the school board and educating children all day, as well as at an after-school program. So for 11 hours today, it was all about our Orange Shirts Day. So it was just an amazing day of activities and participation. So setting my blessings out for this day in so many ways.
Awesome.
So yeah, I guess, and also thank you, Daniel and Sydney for doing this and being here, and hopefully I remember everybody's name, Owen and all the other individuals, Barb, that
Tyler,
sharing all their stories. So my story starts, as far back as I can remember. I'll start off with my trauma, being removed from, my mother's home and having, placed in foster home. And, from there, I was moved with my dad, and he had married a lady that was on the reserve. She was an Indigenous woman. And I was brought up in the culture of, going to powwows, smudging, just learning how to speak Ojibwe, at age 7. I was also going to a Catholic school. Just learning all of the religion culture pieces. But in the moments of all of that, feeling lost, feeling confused, like, where's my mother, being moved around, where's all my family, feeling very confused and frustrated. So part of those pieces of my trauma, I would say, is I was, it was 2:00 in the morning. I was sleeping. A man came into our house in the middle of the country, took me from my bed, brought me to a car. I remember being in shock, and he sexually assaulted me. A couple hours later, I was brought back in the house. The man left. I woke up my dad, told him what happened. So I went to the hospital. So I'm going to fast forward a little bit because there was many times, because I only have a bit of time here, but I've been molested many times. I've been raped. I was abused in different ways, in different foster homes, and the household that I was in. I also, you know, by family members. So moving forward to grade 2, you know, I remember being kind of like all over the place and teachers trying to figure out, you know, back then there was not really diagnoses of ADHD, but trying to figure that out, medicated or not. But I remember bullying a bunch of students just because I wanted that attention, right, from teachers, adults. I would take their lunches, I would spit on them, just really awful things that I was doing to other people. I was setting fires, I was running away, and it also brought me to a moment of suicide ideation. You know, I remember being 9 years old, standing at a bridge going, I don't want this life. You know, I feel like nobody loves me. All this trauma, just, again, really lost and confused. Smoking cigarettes at age 11, you know, tapping into alcohol when I was 12, 13, really enjoying the numbness and then mixing marijuana with that, and wanting something stronger and stronger. So, you know, trying all these different drugs got me to a place of homelessness. You know, my dad at one point, he kicked me out. He's like, you don't want to follow the rules? Get out of my house. You know, I was stealing within the house. And yeah, so I was walking the streets, you know, and because I was under 16, you know, the police would, they were out looking for me because, you know, I was doing all these things. I was sleeping in my friend's closet, and a parent found me after 2 weeks. They're like, what are you doing in our closet? And so, yeah, I had the police, like I was kind of, I guess you could say, couch hopping, closet hopping. I slept in a Salvation Army bin, picking out of Tim Hortons garbage back then, and you know, and just got myself into some trouble. I stole a car. I assaulted a police officer. I escaped custody. I set some more fires. Through all of this, you know, in and out of jail. Every time I got arrested, I got sent away. And I had to, at one point, sit in a jail cell, and they called it dead time back then, but puts me at like in my 30s. I won't spill my age, but yeah, you know, sitting in jail cells, just being with myself and being stuck in my head, and which now to this day, I know that that's not a bad thing, because even with this pandemic, you know, sitting with ourselves and being aware of our thoughts, you know, so now, you know, I finished high school when I was 21. I went to college. I graduated as a correctional officer to work in some, you know, youth facilities, and I worked 15 years in a group home, and now I work in the school board. It's been, 9 years. I'm just going to take a sip of water here. So yeah, it's been 9 years, and I also work at an after-school program with the YMCA. So, sorry, here I got a tickle. So yeah, I mean, it brings me to a part in my life where, you know, it's been a journey, that's for sure. And I don't know if anybody has any questions now. Excuse me. I have to apologize for this. But yeah, so that's pretty much it.
Wow. Okay. We're back. Sid, do you have anything you'd like to say? Any questions out there?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry for what you've gone through. All these stories are heartbreaking, but the worst part about this is people don't have to be suffering like this, it's heartbreaking. Our system should be doing better. We've had lots of time to know what to do, and clearly early intervention is a important key messaging here, is to find that. And instead of incarceration, medical attention and understanding. I'm curious, Jessica, you know, you've had such a journey, and with what you're doing now, Someone is reading my mind.
Yeah.
Boy,
I think I know. I think I might know who that is.
I think I do too. So it's good I'm on the same page here. But what kind of advice would you have for families? What would be your key messaging from what you've learned in order to help families that are going through a similar situation right now with a loved one?
Yeah, I've been listening to this since you guys all came on, and I definitely have to agree with the boundaries for ourselves to protect ourselves, with friendships and relationships, and just to be aware of different patterns, and having accessible resources. I know every time I was released from custody, it was like, here's your backpack, here's the list of resources, we hope you the best. But I guess my number one thing is don't give up on them, because I've had many, many people, to set boundaries with me, because I'd be calling people up, even my grandma, rest her soul, begging for just $20. And she would say, I was told not to give you anything, and I can't take these calls anymore. And I just, that broke my heart. But I literally sat there and it hit rock bottom. But then I hit rock bottom again and again. And, whether we like this or not, I'm going to be real and raw. Sometimes, that hitting rock bottom, sometimes, there's other things that happen, but don't give up on yourself and don't give up on that person. And if that means setting limits and boundaries, then do that to protect them and to protect you.
Awesome. Thank you. So tell us about Tree of Stars on Tour. We've got your link in the chat to your Facebook page, so our viewers can check that out. But tell us more. Where can we find you? What do you talk about? Tell us all the things.
Yeah, so I basically found back in April 2017, I took this picture. I was having some suicide ideation 4 years ago, and I was walking the Hamilton Mountain Brow, and, I'm into journaling and reading and stuff, but it gave me this huge inspiration to reach out to other people and start peer support groups, through journaling and through meditation and music. My dad was a DJ. I always supported music. There was always, Tom Petty, Todd Cochran, hanging out and around music. So I figured, since I've been surrounded by all this, why not share my story and myself to other people as a way to volunteer and give back? And I really enjoyed your word there, Daniel, when you said accountability, when you were chatting with Owen, because it's truth, right? We have to hold ourselves accountability. But the question is, how are we going to hold ourselves accountable for everything that we do? There was a gentleman I interviewed the other day, and he said, they say that there's light at the end of the tunnel, but why are we in that tunnel? And I was like, oh my gosh, this guy's awesome. So, a part of Tree of Stars, I've interviewed 500 people since March of 2020, most musicians around the world, paying them for paid gigs on our Zooms. So every Wednesday, I run free workshops on Zoom. Anyone's welcome. You can also check out, I have a link tree where there's documentaries or album releases that I've been a part of. Just keeping it real and raw and trying to have fun at the same time and meeting people like you.
Awesome. Okay, Jessica. Well, thank you so much for your time. Thanks for joining us, and take care.
Good. Thank you,
too,
Jessica.
and thank you both for.
You are a champion.
And you guys as well. Thank you so much. Take
Sorry,
care.
cut you off there
Stay
too
safe.
soon. Okay, well, Sid,
Wow.
that's the roster. That was pretty good. Is there anything that you would like to leave us with tonight?
You know what? There's so much awesome messaging that was going on tonight. I think, the last thing to remember is that there is hope, that recovery is absolutely possible. And I think one of the key messaging for the families is your child is in there. Your child is burdened with a horrible disease, but they're still in there. So love and support is going to help them get through that. And recovery is possible. There are some great stories, as you've just heard. So hang on to that hope.
Mm-hmm. Okay, my friend, I will let you go, and I will finish this off. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having
And
me.
thank you so much sorry to cut you off. Let me get this out before I forget. Thank you so much for Families for Addiction Recovery and the Newly Institute for both being title sponsors to this episode that brought us here tonight, allowed us the resources to bring it to you loud and proud and bright and shiny. And we look forward to all of the projects that are surely to come with both of these organizations. I'm so happy that we are developing these relationships.
We are too. Thank you so much.
Okay, Sid, take care. There is power in numbers. If you would like to contribute to ending the stigma around emotional pain, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Follow us on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram. Like and comment your thoughts on our posts. Let us come together with our lived and living experience as a resource that has the power to engage new thought processes, to promote new ideas, to broaden the spectrum of care, and to show the world that the lie is dead, we do recover, and we're here to show you how. Happy Recovery Day, everyone. Good night.